Before. In the woods an hour ago I found bearberry. Do you remember what they call kinnikinnick? Of course you remember. The small, sticky leaves clinging to my face that summer years ago when I came up from beneath you. This was before any of the catastrophes. We were far from innocent, but we were, yes, unknowing. Your body shines, glistens in memory as you lie back on the bed of moss, and I approach, bare feet wet from the lake, and kneel. I look up once at the backdrop of white spruce and resinous wind, and look down and cover you. A line returns now, a fragment from what I tried to write afterwards. You can only get there by water. I still hope to use it to play with how it breaks. You can only get there by water. I'll punctuate this with the real and the imagined. I can clearly see how the leaves on my cheeks became green-flecked motes in your eyes and then in mine. And you alone know the texture and shade of moss beneath my hips, the foliage over my shoulder, and how the wind insinuates between us when we draw apart, as we wade into the shallows, warm and cool and warm. We pull on our clothes while we're still wet, stepping into the boat and pushing off. How buoyant we were for days after. I'm going to say it now. Are you listening? You can only get there by water. Harbor. The dock that smells of fish scales and creosote is awash in 4-foot waves, silty, slopes of water sweeping up and over, sawing at my bare legs beside the rocking fishermen's skiffs, cradled in their creaking ropes, the wind in free fall. I wade half the length of the pier before the iron railings disappear, nothing ahead but open water, an undertow of fear reeling me to shore as I tell myself the story of the boy who didn't turn back, who fell in and was lost, and the whole town mourned him. I race away from the harbor along the beach, the retreating waves stinging my feet as I run, thrilling to the current of wilderness in the blowing sand and lashing water. To fight to the last and then surrender and drown and be home by 5. Head bowed for grace, I am the shy daughter and the sun, wind-burnt and radiant in disguise. Oxbow. This is the river that strayed, that slipped aside, and, becalmed in its separate bed, stayed. This is the river that feeds the rushes, the slow reeds and heron, the river that sleeps in a circle and clasps within it an island of 10 white spruce, 100 aspen, and a meadow the span of an embrace that we've claimed this afternoon to lie in face to face on a weft of cast-off leaves. And above your bare shoulders the sky, acutely blue, hooked on the pale green fingers of stripped aspen. Where the river stands down, you turn me like water, cleft from water, and I fall back into my own body as your body divides and joins me into the passing and the held. Passage. The body of the fallen tree is wholly clothed in green moss, the year-by-year fire of its undoing. And this is what halts her, its pulsing phosphorus glow. She lowers herself, her gaze level with the most delicate of seeds, fawn-colored eyes sprung from old bark, and stays there, coiled in the forest's breath, humid with night rain, caught in the tangled understory radiating from her wrists, its profuse invention, leaves like threads, leaves like the tines of umbrellas, wetly amphibious. Her shadow makes the green more green, deepens and sharpens it. She bends closer to the velvet that eats in its gloved mouth the 10 years dead jack pine. The tufts of moss sweep all one way, as if borne into an unyielding north wind, and behind the deadwood and roosted in it a robust red and gray trunk, its grooved bark split by summer on summer of slow elevation. She tips her head back, spine arching as she traces the skirl of branches up to the sunlit crown. One palm across the hummock of moss, she braces against the dizzying downdraft of sky, shoulder bones cradling head bone. She cannot imagine beginning again, and yet she smells it, the birth smell, vernix of decay on which new growth feeds. The mounded tree that was once this tall and lifted its share of light is now a tannic sponge ripe with rainwater and microbial life. The wind rivers through the canopy, and the creaking, dead and dying trees lean harder on the living. She sinks deeper into her body, her weight bearing down through the strength in her legs into forest floor, while her skull floats a cloud, an occlusion between the light above and the dark below. Listening for footfalls, the stealth of approaching bear or wildcat, she thinks, this is where the story begins. But she can't imagine how. Should she follow the path east to the water or the path west to the high ridge? On the brink of opening or having opened, through the passage of one breath and into another, hands on the pelt of moss, she is waiting to rise and be taken. Stormy Weather. The book has been bent out of shape by the rain. I'll never be the same again. On the lake, the rain seems to be rising into cloud inside the book. The words don't run if I hold them under my wing. If I hesitate long enough, just looking around, the boat may fill with water, the rain coming down so fast I'll sink without knowing it. Blue water, gray water, tempest, palimpsest. A hissing infinity of kisses, so many waves, goodbye and hello. The waters converge and the book falls apart. This lake's the farthest thing from an idyll. Meanwhile, the shore approaches a few boat lengths and I'll be born again. I'll pass over from the world of blur and swoon and into the world where standing is still, at least until the wind becomes a wilderness and asks for my clothes. If I understood the wind, everything would be revealed. For now I'm paddling hard, I am the rain's instrument, and it's driving me home, which is, I believe, neither there nor here. The Widow. She looks in the mirror and doesn't know herself. She's lost so many pounds, someone the size of a small child is gone, and she misses the weight. She fills her bath with a froth of white foam to cover the sallow wishbone of her pelvis. She closes her eyes when she washes her breast, the soap slick and cool, and sister to it the scar that runs unnerved across her chest, a hollow where he used to rest his head. And she pauses there, her heart on the other side of that line, and she doesn't know how to hold in that splice the hum of his absence. And yet she does. As she breathes, she remembers him.